So, yep, I'm Jeanette Purkis, as Gay told you. I work here. I have been employed for most of my adult life, and at the moment I'm working for the public service at the APS 6 level, which I love. The book that I've just had accepted for publication, The Wonderful World of Work, is aimed at teenagers on the autism spectrum. So not because I want teenagers to quit school and go out and work and do child labour, it's to sort of give them a taster of what the workplace is like and give them confidence in being able to work themselves. So the book is a workbook, it's an activity book that they can write in. It includes obviously a bunch of activities related to job search, employment, relationships at work, all that kind of thing. There's some wonderful illustrations which our local illustrator Andrew Hoare has very kindly done. Well, I've paid him, but he's done beautiful illustrations, and I will show you some of those in the presentation. There's little personal stories which are actually all illustrating the point of the chapter preceding them, and they're things like people's experiences in education, people at university, people running businesses, people in the workplace, and all of the people are individuals with an autism spectrum disorder, so it's a positive role model. And they're based on either people I know, people I sourced through some research, or myself. And the book is sort of a fun activity book on a positive level for young people on the spectrum. But before I talk about the book, I'm going to talk a bit about myself and my experiences in employment and my experiences as a woman with Asperger Syndrome. Just because, you know, I guess it shows you what life can be like for a slightly older adult with an autism spectrum disorder, and also because, you know, it shows you how qualified I am to write such a book. So I use the term Aspie throughout. By using the term Aspie, I refer to all people with autism spectrum disorders. It's just my shorthand. I don't just mean people who have a strict diagnosis of Asperger syndrome, so let's clear that up. The Asperger's diagnosis, the high-functioning autism diagnosis, is around 20 years old in the English-speaking world, but Aspies have been in the world forever, and mostly, I think, they've worked. So the label can equal disability, but it doesn't have to, and it's very important to have a strengths-based view rather than a deficits-based view of people on the autism spectrum. Instead of thinking, you have Asperger's or autism, therefore you can't do all these things, think, what can this person do and how can we enable them to do that well in the world? So work is not the only part of a fulfilled life. I would never say that. There's other things that are very important, like family and education and community. But work is often a very important part of being a fulfilled member of the community. And it's really important that people on the autism spectrum get access to work. And we really are no less capable than other people of working. There are some barriers, but we can succeed just as much as anyone else can. Oh, this is one of my lovely drawings by Andrew. This is illustrating the idea that people with Asperger's and autism work in all different industries. So we've got a doctor, a plumber, a soldier, a nurse and a miner. They could all be people on the spectrum, and they're all enjoying their work experience. So people on the autism spectrum can actually be fantastic employees. To think in a strengths-based way, we can focus on what people can do and what certain attributes of people on the autism spectrum are that really make us good employees. So we can have skills that relate to our condition that actually transfer very well into the employment world, and these could include attention to detail, reason and logical approach and systematic approach, honesty and loyalty, different take on life, thinking outside the box, that's very popular in the corporate world, and focus and determination. So in this talk, I'm going to swap, no, there's another thing I have to coordinate, I'm going to swap between my presentation and some excerpts from the book. So this is positive Aspie attributes. Every person is different. We all have different personalities, different ways of thinking, different likes and dislikes, and different skills and abilities. Sometimes people might try to tell you that you can't do something because you're an Aspie, or that maybe you should set your sights a bit lower on something that you really want to do. Sometimes these people are trying to help, but often it might not seem very helpful to you. Always remember that you are a unique, amazing individual, and that you have skills and abilities that other people will be very envious of. Some of the many things we Aspies tend to be very good at are focusing on a topic, understanding ideas and concepts that others find difficult to grasp, seeing the world differently, being loyal, being trustworthy, thinking differently to others, having amazing attention to detail, knowing a lot about subjects that interest us, being determined, being rational, logical and systematic, being creative and imaginative, being honest, not judging other people because they are different, and being sensible and responsible. A lot of employers find these qualities very desirable in an employee. So not only do they make you a great human being, but they're also an asset to you when you look for a job. And I should say that throughout the book is very positive. I know that people on the spectrum, from my experience, we can be quite negative and see the bad side of things, and I've really made sure in this book I'm not focusing on what might go wrong. And even when I do, because obviously there needs to be some information about what difficulties might crop up, I've made sure that I don't get stuck on that and I don't dwell on that for too long, and I actually really focus on the good things, and I think that's quite important. So, about me, about my working life. Well, I started my career as a burger flipper in 1992 when I was 17, and it was a burger flipper. I was in fast food. It was during a recession, and so it was very hard to get a job, and I went to about 50 interviews, and I would have done any job you'd given me, you know, whatever came up. The first thing that came up I took, because I was desperate to live out of home and be independent. And that was really good. It was a very trying time, but it really helped me grow as a person to think, I'm so determined to get a job that I will just do everything in order to have that happen. Unfortunately, I have some comorbid mental health stuff, which is a pain, and it led to me having to leave the workforce for some years, which I do regret. But by even though I wasn't employed until 2003, in about 2000 I decided that I wanted an ordinary life. I wanted just to be like everybody else, you know, I just wanted to have a job and a mortgage and just be ordinary, you know, that was really important to me. I tried to get a job in 2001, well I did get a job in 2001, and it just set off the mental health stuff, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to rethink all of this business, but I'm not going to give up. I'm really determined to join the workforce. So I set on a little bit of a trajectory. So I was going to uni to get a degree, and the purpose of that was to get a job. I have a degree in fine arts. I had no great desire to be a painter, although I enjoy painting. The reason I went to uni was to get a qualification so that I could be employed, and that was clear from the outset. And so in about 2003, I started work as a volunteer at a gallery, and that gave me confidence to start a business shooting and editing video for other students at uni and for some of the autism spectrum people that I knew. That gave me the confidence to do a few other things, including writing a book, which gave me the confidence to think I was a real person and not just some disadvantaged, impoverished person, so I could be like everyone else. That gave me the confidence to be an autism consultant, and that gave me the confidence to take a full-time job with the public service. All in all, it took 7 years. I have a master's degree, I'm an APS 6, and this is, what, 14 years later. But that was entirely intentional, and I wanted what I have now, and I got it. So we can do these things. We're very determined, us Aspies. So this is my book launch in 2006. These are all my family. They all look kind of like me. I just put that in as, you know, colour and light. So my career and current roles. So my career is that I work full-time for the public service. I love my job in the public service. I was made to be a public servant. I can't believe I didn't do it earlier. It is exactly what I love. It's protocols, rules, order, codes of conduct, you know, things you're supposed to do. The communication you can't, you know, you're not supposed to be rude or racist or bullying or sexist or anything nasty. Oh, I'm in heaven. And I'm at the 6 level. I like being at the 6 level. I did apply for an EL1 and got found suitable last week, but didn't get the job because someone was more suitable than me. But I find it's the best thing I could do, you know, and I'm not hugely ambitious. I started off being hugely ambitious, and then sort of circumstances got in the way, and I thought actually there's more to life than being a career public servant and being totally stressed about meeting deadlines and things. So that sort of brings me to my other thing, which is what I call my non-work work, or my unpaid work, which is, you know, being an author and doing Autism World stuff. So I'm on the advisory board of the Australian Autism and Asperger Network. I write regularly for their magazine, which is due out very shortly. I'm apparently a role model in the autism world for some reason. I'm an author, and the best thing of all of those is that I run an amazing women's group for Asperger girls and their mums, which some people here are from, and I love it, just love it. And this is me at work, looking very happy. I got a Secretary's Award. Now, those of you who are public servants will know that the Secretary is the CEO and not the receptionist, and our Secretary gave me an award for my work demystifying disability and promoting inclusion. So that's... And excuse the mess on my desk, because, yeah. Oh, and I just put this in, more colour and light. This is some of my artworks. I actually gave that to someone. I wish I hadn't, it's very nice. But so I might have some water. So that brings me to The Wonderful World of Work. So it's a book about employment, and it's about pretty much every aspect of employment that I could think of. It doesn't go into enormous detail about many of them, but it does include fairly comprehensive sort of coverage of all the different aspects of work, except for superannuation. I figured teenagers probably wouldn't be interested in superannuation. I may have been wrong. It's aimed at teenagers on the autism spectrum to prepare them for starting work in the future. And for me, it was really important to do something for that age group. So not when they're on the cusp of going to work and it's all stressful and real, but when it's actually they're feeling, you know, they're at school, they've got a bit of time to think about that, and it actually puts that seed of knowledge about employment and why it's a good thing to be employed, that's sort of already in their head when they get to that stage. So it aims to demystify employment and take away some of the stress by explaining things like how do you write your resume, what do you do at an interview, how do you do workplace communication, all those things that what do you do on your first day, things that can be quite stressful. It gives readers confidence that they can work and that working is something for them, and it encourages them to join the workforce and sets out why this is a good thing. And I've just got another short excerpt from the book. So this is some rationale. That was a sneeze, not a rationale. This is a rationale. The reason I've written the book is that we Aspies tend to have a bit of trouble in getting into and staying in the workforce. I meet a lot of young Aspie men and women who went straight from school to disability benefit payments. I don't want that to be the only option for us when we leave school. Aspies can and do work, and we work in all industries in many different kinds of jobs. In this book, I'll introduce you to some of my employed Aspie friends and give you some tips on finding out what you want to do for a job and how to achieve it. The book includes some fun activities for you to do, which will get you thinking about how work applies to you. So, why did I write it? Well, I have to be very careful that I don't identify anyone here. I don't think I do. When I was a bit younger, recently, in the last couple of years, I met a young man who was 18, and he'd had a diagnosis of Asperger's since he was about 7 or 8. This young man had dropped out of school at year 9 because he didn't like it. I can understand that. But what I didn't understand was that he had no intention of going back and finishing school, or going to CIT, or doing adult education, or doing homeschooling, or any of those things. Imagining what career prospects are for somebody with a year 9 education in the current labour market horrifies me. The thing that horrified me even more was that he'd gone on disability pension when he was 16, as soon as he was eligible for it. And I just thought, if this is what getting a diagnosis when you're 7 means, why are we giving kids diagnoses? And I thought about this, and I qualified it, because I thought, well, it's not, you know, it's good to get a diagnosis and understand that you can get some assistance and assistance in school and social assistance, that's a great thing. But I feel that the diagnosis needs to come with a caution. And as soon as a child gets that diagnosis, we need to be putting in place measures to make them or help them be independent and help them be resilient. And so that's that's really, when I wrote this book, that was what inspired me, was meeting that young man and thinking, you've got a very hard road ahead of you to live the kind of life that I would imagine you would want to live. He was a very bright young man, and I just thought, that's, I mean, I don't want to say that you need a job in order to be fulfilled, but you need to have the choice of getting a job. And for this man, it had been denied him. And this book really means a lot to me. The autobiography, it's very personal. Some of you may have read it. It's about some quite dark stuff. This book means more to me than the autobiography. I want this book to help people. I want this to make that kind of thing where people get a diagnosis and are unable to join the workforce because it's been so negative and they've been shielded from every single difficulty. I want other people to get the benefit of the diagnosis with the benefits of the kinds of experiences I had. And that's why I've written this book, and it means a lot to me. And here we go, here's another nice interview. Here's a young Aspie woman in a job interview at thebigcompany.com. Hopefully she gets it. So, why is the book needed? Well, Aspies are underrepresented in the workforce, and I've found the whole time that I've been diagnosed, I meet people my age and older and sometimes even younger who've got a diagnosis and they've got a master's degree or a PhD or some stellar qualification and ability in some area, and they're working in a job which is not commensurate to their skills. And there's also nothing wrong with that. If people want to work in low-skilled jobs, that's fine. But sometimes I feel they're not wanting to work in low-skilled jobs. They're just finding it hard to get those jobs that aren't low-skilled. And also, school-to-work transitions are hard for young people on the spectrum. And I'm hoping that this book will sort of be inserted somewhere between the school and the school-to-work stage and will actually have some positive impact. There's a lot of negative deficit-based views of people with ASD, and I'm really wanting to challenge that. I think that's really not good. And people on the spectrum getting a job is win-win. The person themselves gets a huge boost, their family get a huge boost, and society gets a huge boost. It's an entirely positive thing. So the book contains 20 chapters, each focusing on some aspect of working. As I've said, there's fun activities, and you've seen the illustrations, stories of individual employed Aspies, and I think that's important to make it personal, to actually make it on that level of, you know, it's about an individual, it's about a person that you can relate to. And it has useful information about work in a sort of an accessible format for teenagers. So this is a young university graduate who's standing on an enormous pile of shiny money because his qualification has led to him having some phantasmagorical job. And just sort of getting. I'll read some more excerpts and then we'll be almost done, and you can ask me questions if you like. So the book's got information on why you should get a job, whether you should stay in school and what to do afterwards, what jobs are out there and what jobs are Aspies good at, what are skills and what are soft skills, how do you write a CV and an application and blitz an interview. There's even something about doing a budget in there. How do you do workplace communication? Why are Aspies good employees, which we looked at before, and what happens if difficulties arise at work? So I've got a few little excerpts here. The first one is one of my personal narratives. So it's Kayla studied for a degree in zoology, specialising in Australian native marsupials. When she got to the end of her degree, she wondered if this was really what she wanted to do. Kayla remembered a visit to Science World when she was a child. Science World was like a museum where children went and learned about cool science-related things like earthquakes, gravity, electricity and the human body. Kayla wondered if she would be able to get a job at Science World teaching children about science. Because she had a zoology degree and was very enthusiastic at her interview, Science World employed Kayla. Before she started, she wasn't sure about all the exhibits and was worried that she would tell the kids something that wasn't true. She called her new manager 2 days before she started and raised this concern. The manager told Kayla that all new staff do induction training and are taught what to say. Kayla was very relieved. After she had done the induction training, Kayla started working on the natural history part of Science World, telling children about animals, birds and the natural world. Kayla's manager was very pleased with her work and told her she'd go a long way. Now, after 18 months of working, Kayla thinks her job is exactly what she wanted to do with her life. She's happy that she studied zoology at uni because it's led her to the job. She wonders if she might get promoted one day. So they're all a bit like that. So this other bit, I've got 3 excerpts here because, you know, I like reading out my book, and also it might be helpful. Making friends at work. Making friends in the workplace. Your work colleagues are not always your friends. Often, employees do not socialise with their workmates after hours. However, sometimes you will make friends with a colleague at work. You might spend time with them after work or on weekends and public holidays. It's okay to be friends with people at work, but there are a few things you should consider about work friendships. Consider your work friends' level in the company. Some of your colleagues might be mistrustful or jealous of you if you're seen spending long periods of time with the boss. If you are friends with the manager, try to keep your meetings within work hours and do not discuss your friendship at length to other colleagues. They might think you're bragging or sucking up. Try not to be too pushy about starting friendships with work. As Aspies, we sometimes get very attached to a particular person, but often this person does not want to be as close to us as we do to them. If in doubt as to whether someone that you want to be friends with wants to be friends with you, ask them how they feel about being friends. Only ask once. Their answer is probably not going to change. Office romances. Sometimes colleagues meet at work and are attracted to each other and start a sexual relationship. This can raise suspicions of other employees and lead to tension in the workplace, especially if one or both of the partners is married or in a committed relationship. My rule of thumb is to avoid workplace romances at all costs, as it just adds to complexity and may make your life at work difficult. Some workplace friendships are strong, and when the 2 friends are working in the same area, but when one of the friends leaves to start a new job elsewhere or relocates to a different city, the friendship simply disappears. If this happens to you, try not to be too disappointed. Maybe think about staying in touch via social media. Then you can restart the friendship at a later stage if you like. And my last excerpt, and it's probably a very important one, and I sort of worried that I didn't put more of this throughout the book, but anyway, trying to stay positive. It's managing anxiety at work. So, as members of the Asperger's Club, we all share one thing in common, in that pretty much every single one of us experiences some form of persistent anxiety. Situations of change, like starting a new job, can be extremely stressful. Often the stress is so bad it makes us want to stop doing the stressful thing. This is not a good way to approach life or anxiety. If something is worthwhile, is stressful, keep doing it. If you stop doing it, the stress is won. If you keep it up and stick it out and work through the anxiety, you're in charge. Also, if you do this, chances are that the anxiety will decrease significantly or disappear altogether. Instead of avoiding the stressful but rewarding activity, in this case work, learn and use some strategies for coping with stress. This could include meditation techniques such as mindfulness or progressive muscle relaxation, talking about the anxiety to a parent, friend or counsellor, pleasant and reassuring sensory experiences, positive self-talk, breathing exercises, physical exercise or medication. Remember that anxiety about a situation doesn't hang around forever. Think of it as an experience which will pass, and I guarantee you'll feel better. If stress is a big problem for you, it's a good idea to seek professional help from a counsellor, psychologist or psychiatrist. And remember, negative things like anxiety are almost always outweighed by the positive aspects of being employed. So, my final little slide, who will the book benefit? Well, it's aimed at teenagers on the spectrum themselves. I actually had a wonderful experience at my women's group on Monday. One of the ladies brought her daughter along who's got Asperger's and she's 12. And her mum said to me, "Oh, Jeanette, you know, my daughter, I was telling my daughter about your book," and she said, "Oh, I need to get that so I can work out what I want to do after school." Well, if the teenagers themselves are seeking out the book, that has to be a good thing. And you know, it really is aimed at them. It's not so much aimed at the parents, although the parents, obviously, I like the idea that the parents and the kids will get together and work through it together if that's feasible, and that it might be something that it starts up that conversation. And I think it's as much aimed as the parents, because I think if the parents are being a bit negative and down on the potential of their child to succeed, then having a book that says, hey, you know, people on the spectrum can achieve anything is going to be really good for them too. But it's also useful for teachers and employment service providers. I think there is a small market there.
When you say employment service providers, you mean employment employment agencies as opposed to managers in it?
Yes, I mean people like Disability Employment Services, Job Services Australia, people like that. Yeah. Sorry, I work for DEWA, so, you know, I use the jargon. Yeah. Yeah, so people that help you get a job. And yeah, this book really means an awful lot to me. I'm hoping that it will be a really good addition to the book, the literature, you know, the canon of autism literature. I think I hope it really has the potential to make a difference, because I think it's very important for people to have that ability to succeed, you know, in everyday life.